You are not alone on your journey. Listen in to the Unshakable Living Show, Supernaturally and Divinely Unshakable with Lysa Beltz. Twice a month for your well-deserved dose of positive energy and your personal reminder that you are perfectly imperfect, and that's okay. Find your true calling and influence the world around you for the better with your profound gifts. Walk away feeling truly unshakable. Remember, God can't steer a parked car, so step on the gas now with Lysa and let Him do the rest. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Coach Lysa, and this is the Unshakeable Living Show. And I'm really pleased to welcome my guest tonight. Dana Long was the editor for my book, Becoming Unshakeable, which is what spawned my podcast. And so I'm really thrilled to have her with me tonight. So welcome, Dana.
Thank you. I am really excited to be here. This is an honor for me.
And the title of our show tonight is Finding Your Unshakable Voice. And so we're going to do just a little bit of background with Dana first, and then we're going to talk about why you want to find your unshakable voice. And Dana, I know the name of your business is Massive Happiness. Where did that come from?
That came from my very creative late fiance, Mark Kessler. He came up with that name as the do business as for the part of his business where he wanted to give back to the community. So he felt like that would bring him massive happiness along with people that he was giving back to. He had a long history of just a really rough background. And he was well on his way through recovery and so on. And I think massive happiness was just kind of a life goal for him. And then that translated over into his business and being able to give back to people as well. Another reason I chose to keep the name after he passed away was that it fit with my goals and dreams as well of helping people fulfill the dream of having a book written and published and possibly going on to do speaking or podcasts like yourself, whatever that meant for them, or just, making good money as a writer, whatever it means for them. Seeing people do that brings them massive happiness, and it brings me massive happiness. And I don't know if I've talked to anyone ever who has not just smiled or chuckled when I've told them my business name, and oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a big reason why I kept it as well.
Yeah, and it really strikes me that massive happiness is not about everything going smoothly in life or everything being on a straight road. We talk a lot about intention and overcoming, and it is truly that. It is overcoming, and regardless of what's going on in your life, or particularly your past, you can choose into massive happiness.
Exactly.
So let's go from massive happiness and kind of transition into the show today is really about helping people find their unshakable voice, which, as you've already said, really does lead to massive happiness. How do I find my voice?
I think the first thing is to understand and recognize if you've got something inside of you that you like to talk about, that people respond to, you see that it resonates with people when you share it with them. That's a really good first stepping stone to think, maybe I have something to say. And then the I don't know, I wouldn't say trick. Then the next step would be to really start thinking it through, break it down into what are maybe 1 to 3, 3 to 5 really important things I wish I could tell everyone about whatever it is that's on your heart. I know for me, it's a lot of times it's talking about day-to-day struggles and some of the things that may seem like small or trivial hurts and pains that kind of hang us up, or can be big things that hang us up.
Yep.
But it's those smaller things that can sometimes be in our blind spots that can hang us up. And I want to help people identify those and heal from those things so they can move on in a greater level of fullness. So for me, I would say the top thing that I'm working on with my book is healing. If I had to break it down to a word, that's where I would start with my own book.
Sure.
So I encourage people to find what are those top 3 things, and then take those and break them down. Again, asking what are 3 things about this first point, what are 3 things about this point, and 3 things about this point, and just keep breaking it down.
That's really, really good. Well, and so I guess one of the question comes to mind is like, do I have to be writing the great American novel in order to do this?
Well, certainly not on the first draft. I don't think even any great American novel has started that way. That usually gets the designation after it's been published and out there for a while. So short answer is no. You just write what's on your heart and really truly let your heart lead the process. And I think you'll find along the way it will touch people in the process. It will bring things up for you as well. And I say in the process while you're talking to people about it, sharing that you're doing this. And then once it's written and you send it to an editor and to proofreaders and to everyone down the road in that process of writing and publishing a book, it will touch them as well. And then of course, when you begin to sell it, it'll pick up its popularity when you are really being truly authentic and speaking the message that's on your heart.
Yeah. And I know that was definitely my personal experience. As I've already mentioned, you edited and coached me in writing my book. And, Becoming Unshakable has been out for a little over a year now. And I've sold almost 300 copies, which
Awesome.
is just phenomenal for me, and I have a download and I've had 60 downloads of my workbook. So I know I'm touching lives. And
Yeah.
I really want to encourage our listeners, even if you are just writing for yourself, you don't even have to be writing to publish. There is so much freedom of expression and the creativity that comes just in the writing process. So, as a coach, what would you tell people if they want to write a family history that's only going to be shared with immediate family, or maybe the cousins and stuff? Would you employ the exact same tactics?
Yes and no. I would suggest think it through, think about what you really do want to say, and then if there happens to be any points of potential contention, like if you're telling something that your family has held as a secret, you might want to be very, very careful about how you word that. And a good coach can really help you work on language that will share the idea of what you're saying, but not overshare details and potentially cause harm. And so there's some differences there. When you're writing I'm thinking specifically of a nonfiction book when I was talking about find your 3 points and break those down.
Yeah.
I was thinking in terms of a nonfiction book versus a novel or a science fiction, fantasy,
Story.
whatever.
Yeah.
Story. Yeah. So when I think of a nonfiction style book that talks about a message that's on your heart, maybe something that God or spirit has given you that you feel to share, or it does include your life story, or it is just strictly your life story and things you've learned along the way, however that comes out. You could certainly use the 3 points and break down those 3 points as well. That is a good tactic. There are others that you could use as well. And it doesn't have to be written. I know a lot of people stumble with, oh, I'm not a very good writer, but I'm a good storyteller. And I would highly recommend that you find a dictation software or just talk into your phone and have it convert to text. Then you just hand that to your editor and let them work on it. If you do dictation software without a talk to text kind of format, there are plenty of resources that you could send those audio files to and have them transcribed into text. So there's options there for people who are concerned about maybe not being a great writer. Didn't do very good in English. I hear that a lot. And I think, no, you're fine. I promise. If you have a story to tell, there are ways to get that story out there.
Absolutely. And another thing I hear people say is, well, I kind of have this thing on my heart, but do I really have anything to share?
Why would I find my voice, let alone use my voice?
Yeah, it's an intimidating thing to think about using your voice. And to be honest, I think it's a struggle for any creative person. I know many creative people who are artists. They do visual art, they might do sculpting, they might do music, writing, all kinds of creative endeavors. And I don't think I've ever talked to any one of them who has been like, oh, I have no hangups about this at all. It always is a thing because you're putting you out there.
Mhm.
Even just talking tonight, I feel like I'm putting me out there for people to see and hear and learn about my process and processes in general. And
Mhm.
it's a very vulnerable thing and it can be intimidating. But if it's something out there or something that's inside of you, there's a
Yeah.
reason why it's being pushed out there. Likely it's because someone needs to hear what you have to say because you can say it to them in a way that only they will hear it from you. I've known people who have had a message that they wanted to share and they shared it and it resonated with other people. And I've seen people, totally different people, share the same message, the exact same content. And because of their personality, their energy or whatever, totally different sets of
And
people
it
resonate with
connect.
it and it
Yeah.
hits them
Mhm.
where this person over here may not have. So if it's in your heart, if to say it because somebody needs to hear it.
Yeah. So how do I even get started?
Again, it's find what it is that you feel like you want to say. Find 3 things that are super important to you,
Yeah, and
and
so
start breaking it down.
let me rephrase the question because you're right. We did kind of already touch on that. And I guess what I was thinking of when I talked about getting started is, so you find your 3 things, you kind of get them written down. What is the process? How do I get started in the process if I did want to share my piece, my book, my story, if I want to actually go through a publishing, kind of what is the start of that process?
Yeah, it's getting those things on paper, connecting up possibly with other writers, to get feedback about what you're writing, maybe get inspiration about it. Um, and then depending on whether or not you want to do this, it's not a requirement, but when the draft is done, a lot of times writers will want to send it to friends and family who maybe are really good at English or have some sort of history with writing, something along those lines that can do a general overview proofread. It's called a beta read. You send it to your first wave
Okay.
of readers and let them give you feedback. And then because you're the author, you can accept or decline whatever suggestions they've made, make your revisions. And then while that's happening, you can simultaneously be searching for an editor. And that could be a whole show on just how to select an editor. But you can interview many different people. A lot of times referral, word of mouth is an excellent way to go, but find somebody that you resonate with, that your message resonates with, and that you communicate well with for an editor. And then you submit it to them and they'll make changes and corrections for you. You go through 1, maybe 2 rounds of revisions. If there's quite a few things, you might make quite a few changes in that first round of revisions and say, can I submit this again because I want it to be more clean when I get ready to send it off to a publisher. There is another step in there. Sometimes publishers will include this and sometimes it will be up to you. And that's something you'll need to clarify with a publisher. And that would be proofreading. And that looks for all the little details in the actual text of the book, not so much content as actual grammar, punctuation, that sort of thing. And then again, I could spend hours talking about how to find a publisher and go through that process and sales and marketing, all of that. But that's a really general outline of that process.
Okay, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how would they connect with you?
Yeah, best way to do that is through my website, which is www.massivehappiness.com. And there is a pop-up that will show up on that website, and it has a free offer for a timeline of those things that I just listed out. walks you through quite a few other points that I didn't pull out, like always be working on your social media platform and be excited and talk to people about your book, get them interested in following you on social media. That is becoming more and more important when you go to publish a book. So there's things like that in there, and it includes all the steps I talked about as well. So,
Okay.
and at the bottom of my website, there's a place where you can sign to contact me, and I will respond back as soon as possible, and we can get to chatting about whatever questions you have.
And so once I get to the point of reaching out to you as an editor, how long does it typically take, or is there a typical to actually go from editing to being published? You know, in our minds, we like to think that it's a 2 or 3 week thing. That's really not quite the case, is it?
Not quite the case. No, I would say it depends on your word count, the length of your book. A lot of editors talk about word count, maybe page count. Typically, there's 250 words to a page. So if you're going to talk in page count, that's helpful for everyone to get on the same page, as it were, about how many words your book is. That can really sway the pricing, because most of the time it is based on a per word price. So
the cost of having a professional editor.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So a lot of it depends, and of course the amount of time that we have to not have to, but that we have to invest in editing a book is going to depend on the length of the book as well. A traditional nonfiction book such as yours typically is around 40,000 words, maybe 40 to 50.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong nonfiction book length. Just because I like the number, I often will kind of steer people toward a 12 chapter book, but perhaps 10 works great. Perhaps it's 14 or 15, but that will also determine how long and short your chapters will be as well. So again, once you start with your 3 points and start breaking those down, that's what starts determining your chapters and titles and length of book.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as time involved, again, it depends. That is definitely the bottom line answer. It depends. But yeah, I would consider at least a good couple month process to get it through editing back to you ready for revision time. And that can even take a couple months too.
Yep. Yep. You know, and if you've got your beta readers, you kind of factor that in, because you need to give them a couple of weeks. And so, you know, I know I finished writing my book in either February or March, and I actually went live with it published the end of June.
Right.
So, you know, I had
that's pretty typical turnaround time for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Coach. And I'm going to give a shout out to Dana, because part of what is in my book, I hadn't even considered. And in a 5-minute conversation on the phone one day, Dana said, "Hey, why don't you?" And it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And what she recommended was just including sections in the book for people to write notes to themselves, to think about, you know, to process through what they had just read, you know, rather than have questions at the end of each chapter and a place at the end of each chapter maybe to write some things. We chose to embed those blank lines, if you would, and some questions inside the chapters. And Dana, it was just brilliant. So
I remember how excited you were.
I know. It's like I can flash back to where I was when you asked me the question, "Why don't you do this?" It's like, oh. So what other little kinds of things, what other little kinds of things like that do you as a coach oftentimes suggest to people? Are there any hints and tips and tricks that you would really want people to consider?
Oh, yes. When you found your points, use stories. People love stories. So put stories in there. Express emotion. Talk about not just, I felt this, but what that felt like in your body, in your physical body, when you felt that emotion. And then be vulnerable and be authentic. That is really, really crucial when you're telling your stories. And put all that kind of thing in there while you're making your points. It'll keep it from becoming dry or, you know, kind of monotonous or tedious, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and somebody mentioned to me, it's like, you know, okay, even Jesus taught in parables. And it's because people relate to stories. You know, to be a great author, I think a lot of times we need to be a good storyteller. And that's true for speakers as well. You know, as I think about the authors that have really impacted me and speakers that have impacted me, it's the stories, it's the personal stories that you really relate to and carry with you.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So tell me one more time. Oh, wait, we got to talk about your giveaway. Quickly talk about your giveaway because we're running short on time.
Yes. So I wanted to say, if you feel like you have something that you want to share, Lysa, or listeners, or even talking to myself here, please don't deny that, because it's in your heart for a reason. And likely that means you have something important to say. And so my giveaway, something that I would love to encourage you to do, is print off this PDF. It's written backwards on purpose because you need to hold it up in front of the mirror and say out loud, I have something important to say. As many times as you need to repeat that, repeat it, do it over and over and over until you believe it enough that you're ready to share it. So that's what I made up for you.
And so anybody that wants Dana's giveaway, email me at coachlysa@lysabeltz.com, COACHLYSA @LYSABELTZ.com, and just put in the subject line giveaway, and I will be happy to email that PDF to you. It is lovely and classy and awesome. So Dana, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And just as a teaser, we're going to do a second show in a couple of months and go a little bit deeper into using your voice. Today was kind of finding your voice. Next show that you come on, we're going to go deeper into using your voice. So thank you so much. Everybody have a great evening, and I will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you,
Lysa.
You've been listening to the Unshakable Living Show, Supernaturally and Divinely Unshakable with Lysa Beltz. Tune in twice a month for your well-deserved dose of positive energy and your personal reminder that you are perfectly imperfect, and that's okay. Find your true calling and influence the world around you for the better with your profound gifts. Walk away feeling truly unshakable. Remember, God can't steer a parked car, so step on the gas now with Lysa and let Him do the rest.